This meeting is being recorded.
This is Bob, and I'm one of the co-founders of Amnesty out here. And I want to thank all of you for showing up for this important discussion. And I hope that all of you will decide who are new, will decide to make this a habit of coming to visit us once a month. We usually have really good speakers and on very important topics. And I just hope this continues. So thank you ever so much for showing up.
Thank you, Bob. All right, so normally our program, Bob does the welcome, and then our treasurer gives us a status of where we are money-wise. Wally, who moved to Colorado, used to be our treasurer. We do have a new treasurer, Najam Adalelki. He is our new treasurer. Unfortunately, he could not make it. So we will include his report in the email that we will send with the recording. So we'll do that. Now, our for all those folks who are new, our local chapter meets on the first Monday of the month. The Zoom doors open at 6 p.m. The meeting actually begins at 6:30. So for 30 minutes we have social time, and then 6:30 to 7:30 is the meeting time. And Bob, who is the co-founder and the current vice president of our chapter, does the welcome, and I'm a co-founder and the current president of the local chapter. We used to meet in person at the Unitarian Church in Clear Lake, but because of pandemic in 2020, April of 2020, we switched to doing it on virtual on Zoom, and that's where we have been doing it. It's a virtual meeting every month, same day, first Monday of the month, 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. So today's meeting, our our keynote speaker is Mr. Alireza Azizi. He he has been a member of Amnesty International USA over 30 years. Currently, he's a member of the Middle East Coordination Group covering UAE, Yemen, and Qatar. He has served in many positions at the Amnesty International USA, from local group case coordinator, area coordinator, nomination committee to the board of directors. He has also participated in 3 Amnesty International research missions to Yemen. Mr. Azizi has a PhD in physics from UCLA and works at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena. His talk tonight is all about the status of human rights in the country of Qatar. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Alireza Azizi. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me turn off my video if you don't mind, so the bandwidth, and then I can turn it on when I start doing that. Okay. Do you see my slides?
Yes.
Okay. So I made some slides, but feel free to ask question, or we can just go off topic if there is an interest. So I know the whole issue of Qatar came up recently because of $400 million airplane gift, and so that's a good opportunity to looking at what the human rights situation in Qatar is. So let's see okay, so this is my outline. First, I want to give some general information about Qatar. And then after that, I go to the status of human rights in Qatar. And of course, it's an amnesty meeting, so it cannot be without any action. So there is an action at the end that I will show to you. So Qatar is located in the Middle East, right at the close to in the Persian Gulf, close to Iran and Saudi Arabia and all the countries around there. It has border only with Saudi Arabia, doesn't have a border with any other countries, but has a, of course, big ocean, with a connection to the water. So that we don't, before like 18th century, I just want to give you a little bit of history of it. Before 18th century, Qatar was basically a Bedouin, the villagers sitting there, living there, and mostly doing fishing. And some basically doing some pearl, trading. Apparently, before that, there was a family called Khalifa family. They basically came from Kuwait and went to Qatar and established Qatar as a business center. They were doing trading there, and they kind of controlled the Qatar at the time. They lived there for a while, and then they decided to conquer Bahrain. So they left Qatar and conquered Bahrain, and they controlled Bahrain, and it's still, this is like 18th century, and after like 200 years, more than 200 years, still is the Khalifa family that is running Bahrain and still is in power. In Qatar, there were tribals, different tribals there, and one of them was Tahani. It was a big clan there, and those they, with the support of the British, they took over, tried to control the whole, other tribes, and British helped them, and then they came under British, as a British protector. They signed an agreement, and they lived there, and of course, Tahini family still running Qatar. Right now, it's all the family running there. And in 1971, Qatar became independent. And this time, of course, at the time that the Qatar became independent, the oil was not discovered in Qatar. It was like maybe 20, 30 years later, the Qatar was the oil was basically discovered in Qatar and become more important as far as the location and the resources. So just give you some background. The capital is Doha. It's a small country, is smaller than state of Connecticut. It has about 2.5 million population, but out of those, only 10 to 12% are Qatari national, and they have a specific definition of who was considered as Qatari national. And the remaining are from South Asia. The religion is 65% Muslim, mostly Sunni, and then they have others, Hindu, Christian, and Buddhist percentage there. Natural resources, of course, is oil, gas, and fish. They have a huge gas resource, is third largest natural gas reserve in the world, and they're sharing it with Iran. And they have 14th largest oil producer in the world. They have a very large GDP. I'll put it here at comparison with the United States. Is 83,000. Theirs is 80,000 in Qatar's. As I mentioned, the independence was in 1971 from the British, and their constitution, they call it constitutional monarchy. Some call it semi-constitutional monarchy. Some call it authoritarian regime. I didn't want to use any specific, just kind of official claim of what kind of government they have. But the Amir, Sheikh Hamad bin Khalifa al-Tahani, is the main ruler, and he has the authority. And all the ministerials are all from the same family of the Tahinis. There is an advisory council, there's a Shura council. This one part of the constitution in 1972 when it was written, but never materialized until 2021, which was the first election, and this Shura came to being. Of course, this Shura has a limited power. They cannot, basically They can only discuss the rules that Amir bring it here, and they can discuss some of the advice. They can provide advisory to Amir, for the rules and the others. So they have a very limited power. Has it 35 members, 20 are elected, and 15 of them are basically appointed by Amir. When the election was happened, they were very controversial on who is eligible to vote. They were limited who can be considered as a citizen and can vote on this. And so there was some controversy on those, and I kind of talk about that a little bit later on. And now in 2024, last year, they basically passed a constitutional amendment that they abolished the election of the Shura. So now the Shura is all appointed. Now they increase the eligibility of who can basically be appointed by the Amir, but there won't be no election, and basically we're all appointed by Amir. And of course, there is no political party in Qatar. Public education from K to 12 is free for all the Qatari citizens, and Qatar provide a universal health coverage for all Qatari citizens, and it's free for mostly other things. So there are some charges for some of them, but mostly subsidized by the government. And this coverage is covered by, some of them are government healthcare system and some of them are private, but they're all covered by Qatari government. And the majority of the healthcare workers professional, of course, are non-Qatari and workers coming from other countries. So talking about the human rights there, the first thing comes in mind is migrant workers right in there. And that one came to basically public attention more during the World Cup, that I would mention a little bit on that. So still there is serious concern about abuses of migrant workers. They have limited rights. They basically the sponsor can basically criticize them or file case against them for theft, and also they don't have much right, if there is a case against them, to be redress them and bring it to the government. And also they're restricting on the job, changing the job, and during the World Cup, because of the campaign by Amnesty and other human organizations, they kind of removed that basically restriction that they cannot do a job. Right now, the thing is, if one of these workers want to change the job, they have to get the permission from the sponsor to be able to do that. They removed that, but they brought this one back now, and they limited how they can change the job, and they have to get permission from the sponsor. The migrant domestic workers, mostly women, are again continue facing severe form of abuse. This comes from condition of the work and the physical and sexual assault. Especially talking about condition of work, some of them were forced to work like 16 hours a day, and they even sometimes they don't get the day off, even though it's part of their the law that they're supposed to get a day off works. And as I mentioned, there is no adequate really method of the bringing to the government to address them. Now, as I mentioned, the Shura Council just proposed, they haven't passed the law, but they propose that they're bringing back, again, requiring the worker to obtain their employee's permission before leaving Qatar. During the World Cup, about in 2020, they removed this requirement, and they would let them to leave the Qatar without permission of the government, of a sponsor. But now they're proposing to bring it back, so they have to basically get an exit permit in order to be leaving Qatar to go another country. This hasn't been approved yet, but this is a proposal at this time. But it's still some of the sponsor, they taking their passport when they're working for them. So in a sense, they cannot leave without their passport. Mm-hmm. And I mentioned some of the conditions that the worker have. One of the things they have in Qatar, again, they came during the World Cup, that from, I believe, June 1st to September 15th, that the temperature is really hot. The workers should not work during the, I believe it's like from 12 to 3, I forgot the time. For like 2-3 hours, they're not supposed to work outside. But at least the government reported that there have been 350 cases of the reporting of that right has been violated, but it's not clear how many of them really was addressed. That because one, the government doesn't have enough resources to do that, and one, they are not very serious into addressing those. The other thing I will put it here, as I said, during the World Cup, there was a lot of pressure from Amnesty and others. They made some major changes to some of the laws, workers' laws in Yemen, in Qatar. And one of the things that came out of that was that during the building of all those stadiums for the World Cup, there were thousands of workers died. And some of them were not clear why they were, they died, what was the cause was. But there was a push from Amnesty and the others that they should be basically compensated for their death. Family should be compensated, or the one that abused should be compensated. So Amnesty and the others suggested that should be an independent inquiry and look at these abuses and recommend, what the compensation should be. And Amnesty suggested as a minimum, again, this one was Amnesty, Human Rights Watch, and the others, the compensation at least should be $440 million. And this number came because that's a price of the winner, in the World Cup. So they said at least they should cover that one, even though that's a minimum. Anyway, so this independent committee that's set up by FIFA recommended that, yes, they have to be compensated. But the compensation that FIFA decided to do was only $50 million. And that one, $50 million, was not to the workers. They said that $50 million, they're going to donate it to World Health Organization, to World Trade Organization, to Human Rights Council, and refugees, UN Refugee Organization. And none of them went basically to the workers. Sorry, I'm going to go faster. I don't want to take too much time. The freedom of expression is limited in Qatar, and there are here examples of the law that basically they can put them in jail for criticizing Amir, criticizing flag, and other causes that here I mentioned that, and of course the cyber law. Basically, again, it comes here if you have, somebody spreads false news, violates social value of the principle. You look at this; these are all very vague. They're not very specific. So by using these laws, they basically can put people that they don't like them, in jail. And I want to mention like two cases here. One was Abdullah Abhays, if I'm pronouncing his name correct. He was a media manager for the World Cup, and he basically voicing concern for the over-treatment of the migrant worker during the construction of the World Cup. So they arrest him, they put him in jail, sentenced him to 3 years, and they made out some charge of bribery, which, again, based on the trial and all the UN working group on arbitrary arrest, they said there's bogus charges. And they kept him in jail for 3 years, and just recently they released him and he went back to Jordan. The other case is the case of two Qatari lawyers, Haza and Rashid, two brothers. And these are from more of tribe, which I will talk a little bit about that. And these two, remember I mentioned to you that there was an election for the Shura, Shura advisory, and they were limited who can be participate in an election. And these two brothers, their tribes, they were not eligible to participate in the trial, in the election. So what they did, they had some gathering, they call it demonstration, but really gathering, and they wrote some letters that, this is illegal, they should have the right to be participate in an election. So they arrest them. They had some charge because they said you objected to Amir's ruling on this, and they sentenced them to life in prison. One of them, Rashid, was released last December, but Haza still is in jail, and it's actually a case that I'm going to bring you, and I'm hoping that you write on his behalf. Women's right, again, women face discrimination in law and practice that comes here. There are still a guardianship system here. They have to get permission from the male, either husband, father, brother, to marry or get a government job. And if they are under 25, if they want to go abroad, travel, they have to get their permission of the male guardian to be able to travel. In the case of divorce, men can just divorce their wife, but if the woman kind of divorce their husband, they have to have a good reason. They have to bring a case why they want to divorce the husband, and the court decide that if that's the case or not. Citizenship transfer is basically transferred through the father. So if the Yemeni man is marrying a foreign, take a foreign wife, he can apply for citizenship for his wife, and also their children is going to be Qatari citizen. But if it's the other way around, and if the woman wants to marry a foreign male, first of all, anybody wants to get, marry a foreigner has to get a permission from the government, which they can get it. But if the woman wanted to get married a male, foreign male, she cannot apply for citizenship for her husband, and also their children are not going to be, Qatari citizen. And of course, the heritage that the male get half of the inheritance of the male. LGBTQ right. There is a discrimination law in Qatar. I'm just going to put the law here, so I'm not going to go over it. You can read it. There are laws specifically on LGBTQ, and there are cases that comes here. Sometimes the government kind of not seriously consider them, but sometimes they do. And I remember many years ago, there was a woman that trying to get out of the country because of the mostly family from her. She was part of the LGBTQ, and apparently she was telling me that there is a not large, but there is a good community there that they're working, they're supporting each other. She managed to leave and go to I think UK. But the recent case is the case of a British Mexican man, Manuel Guerrero Avina. He was living in Qatar for 7 years, and apparently through a dating app, a LGBTQ dating app, he made an appointment with a man to meet, and he was arrested right at the point, and he was sentenced to 6 months in prison, suspended prison term, and he deported in June to UK. The other things I want to mention here is that there is no execution reported since May 2020. There was one execution at that time after a while. And there was another case of a Sudani execution which was basically did not happen. Amir basically pardon the person to life to prison. The other issue is that the issue of the stateless Bedouin in Qatar. According to the UNHCR, there are about 1,500 of them, and that they don't have, they're stateless. These are part of the Shofran family clan. These are part of the same Al-Mura family tribe that I told you two lawyers were part of it. So what happened here is that I forgot to mention the current emir came to power in 99 through a coup d'etat against his father. He overthrew his father, came to power when his father was in Geneva, Switzerland. So then several months later, there was another coup by his father trying to overthrow his son and come back, which it was not successful. But the current government claimed that the Gufran family were involved with the coup against him. So that's why he took all the citizenship away. Now, I should mention that this clan and the Mura family are basically living in the border between close to Saudi Arabia and Qatar. And in fact, some of them actually are citizens of the Saudis and live in Saudi, and some of them live in Qatar. And this family claimed that, no, they are Qatari citizens and they are living in Qatar. And what they did, they took their citizenship away, basically stripped their family from citizenship. They were much larger, and some of them they gave them back, but still there are 1,500 of them. They don't have a citizenship. So that means they don't have the right to work. They don't get, access to healthcare, education. And so really they limited their, living condition in Qatar. And I think that's what I want to say. And the action I want to mention is the case of, again, the lawyers. And I mentioned in the previous slide, there were two lawyers, Rashid and Haza, that were arrested. And there were other people that were arrested at the time of these meetings, but they asked them to sign some letters that saying that they're not going to do any activity against the emir. And these two, they did not sign that letter. So they were basically sentenced to life in prison. Rashid was released, as I mentioned before, in December last year, and Haza is still in prison, and we are asking you to write and asking for his release. These are addressed to the Minister of Justice, and I suggest to send a copy to the embassy. And if you want a sample letter, what to write, there is an Amnesty action here. There's a urgent action, and that's sample. You can find out the sample letter, or even if you want to send an email, is there that you can use. I think that's all I have. I'm going to stop sharing here. And if there is any question or anything I can answer, I'll be glad to do that.
I think there was a question in the chat, right?
I did not follow the
Let's
chat.
see. Oh, does Amnesty International have an office in Qatar?
No, it does not. Amnesty does not have an office in Qatar. We have an office in Lebanon. We did have an office in Lebanon. Still be having it, but it's a smaller office. We have in the area. We have office in Tunisia, and we have an office in Beirut, Lebanon. Because of the war going on and all, this is about a year ago. A lot of staff left in Beirut, but there are offices and there are a few staff still working there.
Thanks.
Does anybody else? Bob, you have a question?
Yeah, the courts, are they government? Are they ruled by the government, or does the religion play a big part in the way their decisions are made?
So good question. Yeah, there are laws. There are two kinds of law they have. Their law is a mix of the Sharia law, Islamic law, and some of the, kind of European law. So they have to mix there to do that. But the cases that related to, basically related to Islamic issues, they go to the Sharia law. They follow Sharia law, Islamic law. But it's more social issue. What is social? I mean, civil law, issues. They go to this, they follow that law. Most of the, lawyers and the judges were, of course, they're foreigners mostly, or, but there are some, Qatari, judges. And, but there are basically assigned by the government. So they're not independent in that sense.
Evie's got a question. Evie, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Is there higher education? I understand that education, public education is free. Is there any form of higher education in the country?
Yes, higher education, they have higher education. In fact, they have some of the US universities, they have branches there in Qatar. So there is an education there, is not free, but is a reasonable. I mean, some of them are basically, some of it compensated by the government. So they have a good, as you saw from GDP, they have a good, income. So they do spend the income for the health and education in the country.
Wally, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I was interested if you could comment a little more on the workers. It appears that workers that are imported from other countries really are in a position of signing away their freedoms in order to go to Qatar. Is Amnesty or any group trying to influence the government to be more lenient towards their workers? Since if I was correct, you said there's actually more non-Qatar residents of the country than Qatar residents. Is that right?
Yeah. Qatari citizens. Yeah, the citizens are about 10 to 12%, and remaining of them are foreigner. Yeah. Yes, the Amnesty and the other human organizations have been talking about this issue of the migrant workers. There was a lot of work before the World Cup, and they put a lot of pressure on this, and there was some improvement. Some of them, unfortunately, going back again to this, but there was a pressure, and the government did change some of the things. Like one example of mentioning, the difficulty these people are, facing. There was a recent case of 17 workers. They came, I believe, from East Africa. They came, and usually when they do this, there are organization or company that sponsor you. So somebody sponsors you. So there is a company in your country, Nepal or things, that they say, hey, I need these workers, that many workers, and they charge workers to find them job. So they charge them large amount of money, depending on where they are, and they come to Qatar. So these 16 people, they paid lots of money, came to Qatar. The sponsor decided that it doesn't need them. Just simple as that. So for a while, they didn't have anywhere to go. They couldn't, they don't speak the language, obviously. And for several months, they didn't have anything to do, and finally, they managed to, the government, go to the government shelter, lived in the government shelter for several months, and then they let them, basically, they deport them without compensating them, at least for all the money they paid, to all these companies to find them job. So there are not, governments, mostly business and the companies have a, upper hand of the treatment of this.
What's, if I can continue with that question, what sort of integration of U.S. companies is in Qatar?
What kind of what? Integrate?
are U.S. companies connected to companies in Qatar?
So I know there's several universities. I don't remember specific companies right now, but there are companies that they were involved in the construction, for example, when they, before World Cup, there were contracts. So there are companies that they have a contract working there, doing that. I don't remember any specific name, but there are companies that work in there, definitely.
Did any other questions?
Oh, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Which actions would you like us to focus on and share with others? I mean, which would take priority?
I mean, for this, I showed an action on the case of Hazaz, the lawyers in Qatar. So if you write on his behalf, that would be great, on Qatar. That's what I put it in. There are other issues. If you want, I can send you, there are cases of workers' right things. But right now, the focus would be on, on the case of this individual.
Okay. And that will be that will be shared at.
Yes, I can send it.
Thank you.
I can send the slides. Yeah, I can send the slides. Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. And I think there is another question.
Yes, I was going to ask a question.
Go ahead.
Can't recall if you already said this, forgive me for forgetting, but is there a particular country or region that most of the foreign workers in Qatar come from?
There are from Nepal.
Mm-hmm.
There are from again, South Asia. They're coming from some African country. So it's Africa.
Yeah.
And there was some from Bangladesh, but I think they're mostly now coming from Southeast,
Southeast Asia.
Yeah, South Asia, coming, and South African.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have a question? Okay. Talking about.
Sorry, there's a question here. Somebody asked, I don't know if you see it. It says, do you look at the human rights violation only in Qatar, or do you look into issues such as genocide in Gaza? I mean, I don't cover, that region, but yes, Amnesty is very involved in that genocide that's happening there, and there is a bunch of many campaign and action on that. And if you're interested, I can put you in touch with the I can send you a material or put you in touch with the person that's covering that. Sorry, I saw that.
Evie has a question.
I have a comment. I was in the Kathmandu airport, and while we were waiting there, groups of very young men from Nepal gathered in big bunches, and they were heading, I don't know if it was particularly to Qatar, but it was to that part of the world. And one of our guides was able to talk to them, and it was clear that they had very little idea of where they were going. They really didn't know what it was going to be like when they got there, but they knew they didn't have anything that they could do where they were. So that's why they were leaving.
Yeah, I mean, exactly what you said. Some of these people really, they're trying to support their families. So some of them, they sell what they have, or they get loan from, somebody to be able to pay for this to come and work in these countries. Yeah. And they, as you said, exactly right. They don't know what they're going to end up, what they're going to do, what the condition is. One of the other things that Amnesty and others campaign on it is the living situation. There's government basically have housing for them, but the housing they're living in large number in some apartment that, first of all, is very far from the cities. I mean, far, the bus has to take them. and with the really, really miserable conditions of the
Yeah.
water, sanitation, and things like that. Yeah. And it's amazing that the country has so much money that they spend and really owns, this development on these people, and is not willing to even, pay them decent salary.
And
Thank
Haven has a question in the chat. What is the primary industry that the migrant workers go into? I wondered that too.
So mainly so there is two. The domestic worker, of course, work in the house. Then the other is construction, mainly construction, and the oil and the gas. Those are the main industry that. And there are some running other businesses like, in hospitality and the others that come in there, especially during the World Cup. There was a lot of them that were running there, but otherwise mostly this construction.
So I have a question. What about, is there a difference in treatment of workers coming from the West, from the US or from Europe, compared to workers from uh, the third world like India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal? Is there a difference in how they are treated in Qatar?
Well, I mean, the kind of workers that they come from US, for example, do not do those kind of work, right? They could work, on the work, in the construction, in the, right kind of, hot temperatures. So definitely treat differently. And the one that from United States, mostly working in the white collar work. So treatment is definitely different than the one that going there.
But if I take a follow on, so if somebody from the U.S. is out there working a white collar job, but on their Facebook page they post something that brings out, say, the human rights situation in Qatar, will they get deported or put in prison, or what happens to them?
Yeah, I mean, the example I gave you was, he was a British. I mean, he was LGBT, but still he was the British Mexican. I mean, the British. He has a British passport, and he still was treated. If you criticizing Amir or breaking the law, then it's yes. I mean, they deport you. They may not, put you in jail for a long time, but they do. I mean, there are treat you. Now, again, it goes back to depending on the job. But give an example, some of the jobs that, for example, managing hotels and things like that, some of them done by people from India. So those are treated a little bit different from the workers, and they are not living in the government housing. So there are the difference between treatment of what kind of work you do and what you have.
Can I ask one more question, please?
Sure.
Yeah.
My husband and I sort of remember us seeing a documentary some years ago on this subject. I'm reasonably certain it was this the same subject. With more, as this gains more, I'm hoping more publicity. Have you noticed any difference at all in the way the workers are treated? And also, are they being warned before they come to Qatar?
So the warning, the second part, warning should come from their own government, right? Because the companies that they do this, they basically they are there for the money. So it's responsibility of the government to basically helping them, like Nepal's and those others that are coming in, which is not clear if they do that. Even some of them in Qatar and the others, when they go to their embassies, they are not very helpful to them, again, because the financial money that they send back. Now, on the first part of your question, if the situation has improved, yes. During the World Cup, again, the pressure from Amnesty and the others really helped. I mean, there were some positive changes that they were doing. This was before the world, the game started. And there was a major change. For example was exit permit. That one was removed. Basically, they said, oh, anybody wants to leave, they can leave. They don't need their sponsors. Now they are discussing that, bring those back in, but at least they haven't done that yet. So there was some improvement in some of the conditions, not all of them. Yes, Bob.
Yes, Bob.
Sorry.
So a person comes in from Nepal. A two-part question. And first off, do they have to sign an agreement that they're going to work for so many months or a year for a company? And if they get there and they don't like working there, I know you said that the government has to sign off, but does the company have to sign off? And is it really hard for them to get back, or do they have to? Are they like slaves and still have to work?
So I don't know if they sign anything or not, but they come a particular sponsor. So come here, for example, that they come here, there for work for particular sponsor. And if that sponsor doesn't want them, they don't have any choice. That's one. They don't have any job, basically. Now, if they go there, as you said, they don't like the job, they cannot just change the job. They have to get permission from the sponsor that brought them here to give them permission to change job, right? Otherwise, they cannot say, I don't have job to go there. Now, that was one of the things that Amnesty and others pushed to change it. That if they don't like the job, they should be able to change job, go to another job. Now, in practice, that's a little bit more difficult because these companies have connection with the government. So it's not easy just to do this. And in practice, a lot of time they would not let them do, or they basically bring some charges against them. There are cases that they're saying, oh, this guy stole from me. That's why you want to go there. And they bring in those charges, so making limited. So it wasn't that easy to do just change job. And the government's supposed to investigate those. In fact, before World Cup, they create an agency to follow those through. Make sure they do that. They set up the system. They can do it through their phone. And I don't know if they still let them do that or not. Now, for the government, for the exit permit that I mentioned, the government let them go, that exit permit has to come from the sponsor. If the sponsor doesn't give them permit to leave, the government wouldn't let them leave. Basically, they're stuck
there. I would stay away from Qatar. So Alireza Sahab, I mean, you speak out again. I mean, not again, but you're bringing out all these issues. If you ever went to Qatar, would you be in trouble?
I don't know. I haven't tried, but there was case that actually Amnesty during the World Cup the issue released, and they wanted to go visit there, and they didn't let them go in. They didn't let Amnesty to. There was a report, and they wanted to release it, and they wanted to go there, so they can stop you from going there. I don't think they would arrest me. If they wanted to do, they would basically not let me to go in, visa and go to Qatar if they wanted to do that.
Wow.
Yeah, again, I haven't done it, but I'm assuming that would be the case to be there. And I mean, this is in Qatar, is kind of treatment of the workers is very similar to what happening in United Arab Emirates and some other countries, unfortunately, similar. One, or Saudis, one is maybe a little bit better than the others, but unfortunately, that's a treatment. And in some ways, some of the things that change in Qatar is still happening in Emirates and in Saudis. So not very positive in that sense.
Is this free education? Is it only for the 10 to 12% of Qatari citizens and not for foreigners?
Yeah, that's correct. It's not for foreigners. they have to pay, but it's not very expensive in that sense. I don't know how much it is, but it's not. But yeah, that they have to pay.
Okay.
Yeah. And the other thing I got to say, some positive, is that, I mentioned they're Christian, Hindu, and they can practice their own religion. There is no issue in, practicing their own religion. But if they want to advertise, then that's the trouble, that they're not allowed to do that, or try to convert, Muslims especially, to, the religion. They're not allowed to do that. But as far as they're practicing their own, they are free to do that.
All right. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay. So, Mr. Azizi, thank you so much for taking time. I mean, you're still working at JPL in Pasadena, and you said that you just came from work and
Yeah.
got on this meeting. Wow. And it's out there. What is it now?
It's
5:21.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm okay.
Thank you so much. This was really an eye opener. And Bob, do you want to add anything to this?
Yeah, there is one thing. Mohammed talked about us meeting the first Monday of each month. That will not be the case in September. If somebody misses next month, in September, we always meet the second Monday because of Labor Day. So I thought I'd better bring that up. But we hope
Yeah.
that you come back. I hope this is not a one-time thing. And, please join us, because we have speakers like we heard today, and I think you will really get something out of these folks.
Yeah, so our next meeting would be on Monday, August 4th, same time, 6 p.m. to 6:30 social time, and you get to hear all kinds of really interesting information. And but Bob mentioned earlier at the beginning that if you live in the Southeast Houston Clear Lake area on July 17th, which is a Thursday, there is going to be a vigil at the Bay Area Community Center. It's 5002 East NASA Parkway. Bob, what time is that vigil?
It starts at 6:30. I'll try to end by 8 or 8:30. I'm not sure which one,
Yeah.
but I think
Yeah,
they're going to
so
try to end by 8.
it's the same location as the Bay Area New Democrats meeting and the Bay Area Democratic Women meeting. It's the Bay Area Community Center in Seabrook, and so put it on your calendar, and we would love to have you there. And if they allow it, Amnesty International will have a table.
I suggested it, and I think you're going to have one, and you may get a chance to speak.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I have just one, sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Ruth.
One question, Haven, if you don't mind me, if I'm not putting you on the spot, you had mentioned that you found this group because you were searching for human rights organizations. And I was just wondering if there's any issues that you're particularly interested in or passionate about.
I guess just in this current climate in the US, the ICE, the stripping away of human rights, just, yeah, all those things.
Yeah. Makes sense. Well, I'm glad you've joined us.
Yeah, I'm glad I found it. This seems like a good match.
at some point, we will touch on all the issues here that's happening here in the U.S. and Texas. So at some point,
Well, I went to a webinar last week, I guess it was, and I'm going to give Mohammed the info for all those speakers. Because I think any of them or all of them could be great speakers for this meeting. So.
Oh, Ruth, do you want to put a plug in about the movie that we're
Yes,
doing?
I hesitated because we don't have a date yet, but the Society of Professional Journalists Houston chapter, I'm on their board, is going to be doing a screening of. Do you hear that feedback, or is that just me?
Oh, I hear it too.
Okay. So, all right. I was going to say maybe you should talk about it, but it sounds like it's gone away. So we're going to be doing a screening of a film called a documentary called Gaza Journalists. Oh gosh, I forget the title. What is it? Gaza Journalists in Danger. You're muted. I'll get the correct name, but it's basically a documentary. It highlights, of course, you may know if you're following the situation in Gaza that one of the groups that the Israeli military has been especially targeting is journalists. And so this is about that. It's like 40 minutes long, something like that. And they highlight, I believe, 3 different Palestinian journalists, in their lives and their work and how they were killed. And that's going to be followed by a panel discussion. And we don't have the date set yet. We don't have all our panelists confirmed, but we're going to be having a mixture of like advocates and journalists on the panel, including a couple of the second or third Saturday in August, Mohammed has decreed. So, provided we find a location, it will be in person, and we will also be having other organizations partner with us on the program. And I think that Amnesty is going to accept our invitation to be a partner in that program. So we'll keep you up to date on it, but really important subject.
You'll be sending an email when it's all set, so I can send it with share with the Houston group.
Yes.
Yes.
Super.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. I guess that's it. If nobody has any comments or anything, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you all on the 4th of August, if not before.
Enjoyed
And
it.
thank you,
Bye.
Mr.
Thank you,
Aziz.
everybody.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.